So are you thinking about getting married? You think about being with somebody forever?
Forever.
But do you even really know what that means? Have you thought about it? Have you thought about what it takes to actually do that? Well, that's today's lesson. What is forever? Let's get it in. Now hold up. Before we get into these details, take a moment to make sure you're subscribed to the channel so that the algorithm knows what's up, so YouTube knows you like these videos. Now, we are a new channel here, and our goal is to reach 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So, you know what you do. Subscribe, throw thumbs, tell everybody about what we doing. Alright? Now, details. Bang, bang. So as we already discussed, some of you, F that, many of you, when you go into this, I'm going to drop rings on somebody or I want a ring from somebody, you aren't really thinking about what it means to be with someone forever. So today, in order to make sure you're not just going to get into something and get out of something, that you're actually going to be committed to the person, we're going to talk about what that means. We're going to think about it in a few different ways. Matter of fact, let's just break it down to two main ways. So I don't want to confuse you. You're already thinking about marriage and all this other stuff. So let's just keep it simple. Let's just divide it into temporal and practical. Temporal, not like tempura. That's fried, beautiful food, and that's just making me hungry. No, temporal as in time. Practical as in the practical steps and what that actually means. So, first one, temporal. The time of it all. So what do I mean by that? I mean the average age that someone lives to in the West is about 80 years. Depending on which country you live in. The US, it's around 78. Canada is around like 81, 82, something like that. So let's just say 80 years. You live to about that. Now, if you get with somebody when you're 20 to 80, that's 60 years. You commit to someone when you're 20 years old, you're going to last a long time. That is 60 years of your life. Now, let's up it to 25. You might have met him when you're 20, you guys are dating around, doing whatever. By 25, you get serious. So let's just eliminate all the like 5 years of playing around or whatever. But 25 is when you're like, no, we're dropping rings, we're doing this. You're still committing to 55 years of being with this person. Let's change it. Let's fast forward 10 years. Let's say you never met this person, you meet them at 35, get together, and you're like immediately, oh, this is the person I'm going to marry. That's still 45 years. Now, why am I bringing up the math of it all? Why am I talking about the numbers? Well, one, many of you have no idea what the numbers are. You haven't thought about that at all. You have not thought about the fact that this person you're committing to, let's just round it off to 50. It's a 50-year commitment. 50 years. You might think, oh, yeah, I can be with them forever, and I can do this, and I can do that. But have you calculated the amount of years that is? Many of you watching this aren't even 50 years old. You haven't even lived for 50 years, let alone going to be with someone, committed to them, not going nowhere, not dipping out when it gets hard, not dipping out when you get bored. 50 years. Now, I keep saying this, not because I'm trying to deter you from getting with somebody. Not at all. On the contrary, I want you to admit and think to yourself, this is a 50-year commitment. Many of you getting into relationships for a long period of time because you're not calculating the actual numbers and you're just kind of going with the flow or going with your feelings or going with love and all these other things. Yeah, it's great. You're not thinking about the actual contract that you're signing. You're not thinking about that it's 50 years connected to this one person. If you think about it in that way, that it's a contract, that's like a car payment or a mortgage. When you buy a house, at least here in America, it's generally like a 30-year mortgage. You think about, wow, for 30 years I'm going to have to pay for this house. But when you're thinking about who you're with, you don't put it in that time frame of it's going to be a lifetime, the actual years that you're with this person. Because if you did, you would probably take more care. You'd probably take more time in the beginning of thinking about who this person is and can I be with them for 50 years? Can I be with them for 60 years? Now, this is done by Western standards. Don't even get me started on if you live in an Asian country or any of those other countries where the life expectancy is a lot longer. Then, yeah, just throw some extra years on top of that. Because if you think about it willy-nilly, if you think about it like with the love and the emotion and all these other things that change over time and are fleeting over time, if you don't build your relationship on a foundation of just facts and numbers, you can have love there too. But if you don't have the facts and the numbers of I'm going to be with this person for 50, 60, 65, 70, yeah, oh my gosh. If you aren't thinking about that, you tend to not factor in as much as you would if you were buying a car. You don't factor in as much as you would if you were buying a house. Cars and houses come and go, but the person you're with is one of the most major choices you're going to make. Outside of God, it's the next most important choice. Even more important than your job, your career. Your career can change. You can have 3, 4 major careers in your lifetime. But in terms of your person, you could have 3 or 4 major people in your life, but you choose the wrong person. That's your ass, Mr. Postman.
It's your ass, Mr. Postman.
But now you're probably thinking, how? How do I make sure that I'm with this person, or how can I determine whether this person is going to be someone I can be with forever? That makes no sense, Cedric, because people change over time. You just got through saying that I haven't even lived 50 years, and I've changed so much in the 30 years that I've been on the planet, so what? We're going to get there, don't worry. It's balance of power. I don't just give you problems, duh. We break it down these solutions, which brings us to part 2, the practicality. Now, you've probably heard me say this before, but victory often lies in the extremes. And that's what we're going to be looking at in terms of finding the person that you're going to be with forever. So, what do I mean by victory lies in the extremes when it comes to this? You need to find someone that even if they change, and yeah, we get that people change over time and they have different things, but you're going to be looking for someone who you can handle and spend life with in the extremes, when things are the best and when things are the worst. When it's the best circumstances possible and when it's the worst circumstances possible. Now, weird, yeah, because you might be thinking, yeah, I get how the worst circumstances are what I should be worried about on one side of what happens if things go wrong, but why is the best? Why is that bad? Everybody behaves when they're in the best circumstances. No, they don't. When you have someone who's got the best and the worst, those are the areas in which you truly see who the person is. So yeah, in the middle, if things are like average and good, cool, yeah, a lot of people can behave in that moment. But when it's extremely good, like, let's say this person wins $1 billion. Who would they be? Who would they be if they had billion with a B, $1 billion, right? What would they buy with that money? How would they behave? How would they act? Would they treat people beneath them as if they were beneath them? If they were at a store or if they're at a restaurant, would they treat the service people like they're nothing? I got $1 billion, I can do whatever I want. How would they operate if they had all the money in the world? Let's just make it a different form of power, right? Just power in general. Now, you've heard the phrase, absolute power corrupts absolutely, but not always. It depends on the person. It depends on how that person wields power, which is why thinking about what they do when they're at their absolute best, when situations are at their absolute best, this is important, just as important as when things go wrong. When they have power, who are they? Do they still operate within a set of rules, of standards? Do they operate with honor? Do they operate with kindness? Do they operate in ways that you, as their person who's with them, would you be proud of them? Would you want to be around this person? That power could even translate into power over you. So let's say it's not something as crazy as like, I got $1 billion. But let's say you are in the same field. You don't work at the same place, but you're both like, I don't know, marketing execs. And you both are at a certain level in each of your different companies. But your person gets a raise. So now they're the manager. They're the director of marketing at whatever company that they're at, right? So they haven't gained like power over the world or power like $1 billion to like buy a bunch of stuff, but they've gained power in your relationship in a sense. Do they react in this competitive kind of way of, oh, well, see, we were both here, but now I'm here and you don't even understand what it's like being blah, 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 blah. Do they now look down on you with this power difference? Not just how they are with you in the relationship, but when they get a little power in an area in which they might think of you as competition. Are they competing with you? If they start making more money than you, if they start doing better in their areas as you, if they look at you and the kids, do they see competition when things are great? When things are going well for them, do they now start to treat you as less than? So those are just some examples of what I mean by not just thinking about the bad, but also thinking about the good. You need to see how that works out. So that was the best. What about over here on the worst side? And these are things you probably already know about. Let's say they, instead of over here, they got a promotion, but let's say they lost their job. Loss of career, loss of life. These are some of the things that have destroyed relationships over time. That when you're together, life is gonna happen. Life is gonna come through, and I've said this before, life don't give a flow who you are. They're gonna, life is gonna punch you in the face. So when you get punched, when you get hit, when you get knocked down, when you lose your career, or a family member loses their life, whether it's your person's mom, their dad, or let's say, heaven forbid, it's something within your own relationship. If you two lose a child, I know that's rough. I wouldn't be doing my job if we didn't talk about the hard things, if we didn't talk about the difficult things, just to make sure that you're truly thinking about all the things you're thinking about. Another thing that doesn't often get talked about, but happens a lot in relationships when you start to go past year 4, 5, 6, year 7. Year 7 is a doozy. In relationships, you start crossing over into not just loss of career or loss of life, but then you start to get into loss of self. When that person you're with starts to think, do I even know who I am? Do I even know what I want? How have I been operating at this point, all these years in my life? But at this point, do I want to change? Do I want to switch up? Who do I want to be? Is how I've been behaving who I want to be? That whole thing, that loss of self. That outside of like somebody putting hands on somebody or cheating or money or like loss of life and loss of career, those kinds of things, the next biggest thing is loss of self. And in some ways, no offense ladies, you are more the culprit of this way of, you don't consider it loss of self so much as self-discovery of, well, I'm a new person now, I'm different, and so it's loss of self if you're looking at it as, I lost who I was because I was doing so much for the family. And it's not like men don't feel that too. But the loss of self tends to affect women a lot more in this whole, who am I? Because you all get to do that. Just real quick, just to remind you, if I haven't said this in a video that you've seen before, this is going to be something real quick I throw on here, but we're not going to get distracted. But when it comes to our clocks are different with men and with women. So men get to decide to start their family whenever. So their clock on whether they want to have a family or not, we don't have to rush on that. But what men have to rush on is who we are, what we're going to do, the ambition portion. Our clock, we ain't got no time. We need to figure that out way early in our life. And it's the reverse for women. You got to figure out early on if you want a family. Do you want kids? Your biological clock is not something you can play on. You need to figure that out way earlier than men. But who you are and what you want to do with your life, that you can spend all the time in the world on. So we each have our thing that we get to play around and waste time on, and we each have our thing that we gotta be on top of it. So this, ladies, is your thing. You get to decide who you are and what you want and how you want your life to be and who you are as a person. You could figure that out for the rest of your life. And generally, ladies don't stop thinking about that until late 60s, early 70s. That's when you finally figure out who you are, generally speaking, based on all the study and different things that I know about. Generally, it happens retirement age. So loss of self, that tends to happen more with you ladies. But that is something you need to think about in this whole worst and best. Can you handle being with somebody when they're at their worst and when they're at their best? Now, how? How do you determine that? What are the factors you need to look at? So some of these elements, communication. Do you talk about these things as they're happening to you? Do you share with your person? So when you win the $1 billion on this end, either you or your person, how do you each react? Does your person, the person you're thinking about forever, would they talk to you? And do they talk to you when these things go down? When they win a bunch of money, when they get their promotion, when they have absolute power in some area, do they communicate? Do they share? Do they discuss options and different things with you? Do they get your opinion? Which goes into the next one, which is respecting opinions. Do they respect your opinion? When there's a loss of life and you're thinking, well, I think we should have the funeral on this day. I think we should, tell the family or not tell the family, or if it was a miscarriage, I don't think we should let anybody know. Whatever it might be, do they respect your opinion when things get tough, when things get hard, or when things are great? Do they communicate? Do they even care what you have to say? Are they sharing life? Are they sharing with you? So it goes into the communication and respecting your opinion. Are they sharing anything? When things go down, do you even know about it at all? Or do you find out after the fact? As you're going through the early stages of your relationship, think about that. How often have they talked to you as you're the first point of contact? Have they respected what you had to say about the situation? Are they sharing important details, whether that's from the bad side or the good side? Which brings me to the blanket thing, the umbrella thing that each of these three elements fit under. Do they turn towards you during these times? Do they work with you? Are you that primary person in their life? Do they turn towards you or turn away from you? When things get really, really good, do they turn towards you and communicate? Do they turn towards you and respect your opinion on what you got to say? Do they share what's going on in their life? Or do they turn away? Do they turn away when things are great? Do they turn away when things are horrible? Do they go off and try to do things on their own? Now, we do that a lot in terms of men, and with sometimes there's things we want to do on our own, fix on our own. We're not great with the communication, but it doesn't mean we don't want to, and it doesn't mean that it's who we are all the time. It could just be that in the beginning he's not used to it, or he's got to learn you, trust you kind of a thing. But if it's been a minute and you've gone through some stuff and you've proven yourself to be a safe place for him to land, If you're a woman who is open to talking and communicating, and it's not like crazy every time he tries to tell you something, if it makes no sense for him to not tell you because you've been great, you've been good, then that's a little different. If there's been enough time for him to share himself and open up with you, if you've let him know, if you've told him, hey, I'm that person you can come to, especially if it's good. It might be harder to see on the negative side, but judge it on the positive side. If your man right now, your boyfriend, let's say you're not married yet, you guys are in the, I don't know, zone 3. You start in like the long-term relationship section, but when good things happen, what does he do? Does he turn towards you? Does he share his life? Does he communicate? Does he respect your opinion? All of these things. But ultimately, this is the main thing. Now, there's a lot of other areas, and we can get into a deeper video if you want me to. Let me know in the comments. Let me know if you want me to seriously break down specifically all the different ways and all the different things that you could look at in order to see if someone is a forever person or not. But this is just a blanket overview of something you can look at. These 3 elements underneath the umbrella of, do they turn towards you? Do they share? Do they communicate? Do they respect you, your opinion, what you got to say? Do they work with you when it gets hard, when it gets good? Are you a part of the process or are you not? Are they going to fix things when it's good and decide where the money's gonna go by themselves? Or when they win that $1 billion, they're like, yo baby, I just got $1 billion, what we gonna do with it? Are you a we? Some people right now are married in your silos. You're like individual silos and you're not operating together for different reasons. I've seen it over and over and over again. One of the things I've tried to do in those situations when I'm counseling the couple is to create some kind of a Venn diagram where their 2 circles, their 2 silos can coalesce to like at least a 3rd silo where they work together. You can still have some of your independence and all that good stuff, but if you have nothing where you work together, if you have nothing where you're sharing your life, if you have virtually nothing except the house you live in, the bed you sleep in, the kids you share, that's it? Y'all just like together in name only? Those are the relationships that really don't work. We can go into detail, but ultimately, it's under that umbrella. Does the person turn towards you when things are at their best and when things are at their worst? And yes, I know, it's difficult. It might be confusing and it's going to take some exploration and time to figure out if this person is the forever person or not. I get it. It's not the same as when you first got with a person. Because, as you know, acquisition is elementary. Retention is hard. Now, that's the end of today's lesson. And this lesson, as all other lessons, is mostly free, but you got to pay a small fee in the form of a thumb, whether up or down. Doesn't matter. Just let a brother know whether you love it or hate it. And again, we are a new channel. Throw thumbs. Do the damn thing. Tell everybody about us. Now, I know you love these lessons. Where else you gonna get such in-depth information? Nowhere.
Where you going? Nowhere.
So, come on back, click on another video, get some more learning in. Until next time, though, deuce deuce.